Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Fan the Flame podcast. This week, we're really excited to be speaking to Louise Ingram. Louise is part of the Stony Stanton congregation of Living Rock Church. She is a pediatrician. She is a mum or mother, depending on which way you want to say it. And she is absolutely passionate about seeing young people and everybody grow up to be the person that God made them to be, and to achieve all that is the purposes that He's given to them. So really excited to hear from you, Louise. Welcome. Did you want to say hello to our lovely guests on the podcast?
No, it's a bit different to be here on screen talking to people.
Cool. Look, we're really pleased to have you today. So thank you. For those that are new to the podcast, let's just remind you why we're doing this. Look, we really want to explore those everyday stories of everyday people in everyday situations and hear how God speaks to them so that He can achieve His eternal purposes. Look, we want to find through these stories about life and faith, about what we can learn about how God gives us hope, gives us direction, how He fans into flame those gifts that are within us already, so that those gifts are used for His purposes. Each one of us is unique, and He has an individual plan and purpose for each one of us. So look, we're really excited to hear from Louise tonight. So we're going to crack on straight away, Louise, and we'll head straight in there. Over to you, Patrick.
Hi, Louise. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I can't wait to hear all about your story. I've not actually heard it before, so I am looking forward to hearing lots about it. But first, I think it's best if we start to try and get to know you a bit more, get to know Louise Ingram a bit more before we hear more that you're going to say later on. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. So are you married? Do you have any children? Where do you live? All that type of jazz.
Okay. Yes, so I'm married to Andy. We've got 4 children. We're moving out at the stage of little children into the stage of teenagers now.
Mm-hmm.
So our children are, 10, 11, 14 and 15, which makes them sound closer together than they are, I promise. But yeah, our daughter turned 14 yesterday. So
Wow.
They're great. They take up less time now than they did when they were tiny wee, but they still take up a good amount of my time. What else? Well, we live in Croft in Leicestershire, but we moved to Croft because we wanted a life for our kids where they could play out, they could make friends. We loved the small village school that the children went to, but equally we're sort of 15 minutes from Leicester City. And we've got all the amenities, we love it. But all of our families are down on the south coast and in London, so we haven't had much. We don't have family support locally, although they do come and see us. And we've been at Living Rock in Stony Stanton. We've been married 19 years, and so 17 years we've been at Living Rock now. Before we had Isaac, our eldest, who's 15.
Oh, so were you there when Living Rock was in Thomas Esley? Or was that before?
No, we're not that old.
Ah, okay. So that would have been, yeah, that's the last memory I have, the furthest back memory I have, I think, of Living Rock. Yeah, wow. Nice. And what do you do?
I remember you as a tiny person.
Oh, do you? Oh, no. You see, some of my friends still say that I'm a tiny person because I'm the smallest out of my friendship group, but we don't have to go there. We can move on from that straight away. What do you
packages?
Yeah, that's it. I'll take that. What do you do? What's your job currently?
So I'm a children's doctor. I've just finished. It's funny, at the grand old age of 42, I've just finished training to be a children's doctor. I mean, in reality, I've been a junior doctor for 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
No, longer than that. 2006. 20 years, 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taken me a long time to get there, to get to the point of becoming a consultant, mostly because of the children and the sort of went part-time and the time I had out to look after them. But also for some sickness reasons, which I think will come up at some point during the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just about to start a new job as a consultant at one of the local hospitals,
nice.
which is exciting. It's a new phase of life for us.
That's really good. No, that's really good. No, that's good. Would you say, is that your best job that you've ever had? Have you had any other jobs?
So I love my job, and I firmly believe that I'm doing the thing I'm designed to do. There's so many things about my job that just fit me down to a T. That said, when I was an A-level student, I worked at a bookstore. Man alive, I love books. And that was just like working in a playground, plus 30% discount.
That is good.
Winning.
That is true. No, that's great. So you mentioned earlier about that you have family down south. How you said you moved when you were about 17 years ago. Where do you prefer? Do you prefer down south or Leicester? Big question early doors, but
I grew up in London. I grew up in Croydon. And Leicester's Leicester City. I came to Leicester Uni. And one of the reasons I came to chose Leicester Uni was because it felt like Croydon. Walking around city centre felt like living in Croydon. I love the ethnic mix, the cultural mix of the city. Do you know what though? So my husband's family live on the south coast, a little town near Havant. So you can look out over the sea and see the Isle of Wight.
No.
And so he grew up going for family holidays there. And so we've done similar up until COVID. We were doing every other year. We were going to the Isle of Wight for a holiday. And every now and again, Andy jokes about working on the Isle of Wight. They have a hospital. They have quite a lot of children.
Yeah.
All the fun stuff goes to Southampton. But so anyway, if you are Andy, he'd love to move to the Isle of Wight.
Yeah.
And it is lovely there. It's like stepping back in time. So yeah, lots of good times there.
No, that's really good. So thinking back then, as we're looking back over time, what is your favourite memory? So thinking right back when you were a child all the way up until now. It could be a few weeks ago. It could be many, many years ago. Who knows?
This was a really tricky one to answer the first time around, and to answer in general, partly because my memory of my childhood isn't brilliant. And partly for other reasons. But there's a moment fixed in my mind of the kids when we moved into this house. It was a complete state. It had orange walls and a really old kitchen and carpet in the bathroom and an avocado bathroom suite. So it was rough when we moved in, which is why it was cheap, which is why we could afford it. So we did the bathroom when the kids were, so the youngest was sitting up in the bath. Because I've got this picture of the four of them. So Eli must have been about 6 months old. So Isaac would have been 5. And I've got the picture of the four of them sitting next to each other in this white bathtub, which was like amazing, given that it had been green. All the photos from there, like, you took a picture of the kids looking cute in their first bath and stuff. Ours are all in black and white because the green is just too much. But at this moment of, it's in my head of them, and it's exactly what I always wanted. People ask, when you say you've got 4 kids, people raise their eyebrows. And when they find out we had a boy and then a girl and carried on, they raise their eyebrows at that as well. But actually, we've always wanted more than 2. And there was something about it. After we had Eli, that was our little family complete. After we had Anna, there was somebody missing. And we always knew we'd have an even number. Didn't want anybody left out. So yeah. And then there was a lot of memories are sort of snapshots in my head of pictures I've taken over the years. And there's another one of us all at KFC. And the 2 older ones are going up to us and we'll catch up. And I'm holding the baby and Sam is sitting in the high chair or something. And I just remember in the heart, it was really rough. So, I mean, we were in KFC and it was dark outside because you could see the reflection in the window. So you've got to think, it was 4 kids under the age of 6. It must have been rough. But those are moments that I'm like, that's exactly what I wanted for my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are pretty cool memories.
No, that's really good. That's really good. So Andy, obviously your husband, when and how did you meet him? I've heard this story is quite good, so I've got
Have
high
you heard this
expectations.
story?
I've not heard the story, no.
Okay.
No, this is new to me, so I'm excited.
Okay. And how do we feel about language on the podcast?
Tis a church podcast, Louise.
It's a church podcast. Okay. No, that's good.
This is going to be better than I expect, isn't it? I can't wait for this.
It might be. So, South Coast lad and a South London girl. So we met in Leicester at uni. So he went to Leicester. I went to Leicester Uni to study medicine, and he was at De Montfort, which is Leicester Poly, which is what I tease him about. So he was at the moment, and we met at Holy Trinity Church in Leicester, which had a really thriving student ministry at the time. And such credit to them and to Tim, who was our curate, who did so much for us. And Andy and I led our first life group there and grew in our faith a lot through that ministry. So as you do when you have a new influx of students, you set them all up in life groups. So our life group ran out of the church, and there were 6 of us. There were 3 lads, 3 girls. Me and my housemate, dear friend of mine, still went along for the first time to this new life group. I met these lads and this other girl, and actually dear friends with most of them still. It was a pretty good life group. Lots of people got married within that life group. Like I met Andy, Kathy met her husband, Sarah met her husband. It worked out quite nicely.
There you go.
But we went along, and we're doing that thing about introducing things. And I got this really clear memory of walking home with Sarah at the end of the night, back from the church to where we were living, and saying, "Oh no, well, yeah, these people seem all right. Yeah, that Andy, he's a bit of a strange man, isn't he?" And the story he'd chosen to introduce himself with was he's a filmmaker. And I know that he may edit this bit out because he's helping with the editing. He's a filmmaker, and he'd done quite a few projects with school friends, high school friends at home. And they'd made a film where he ended up in a forest, tied to the trees by his gentleman parts, and there was an axe murderer going through the woods looking for him. And you have to picture my husband. He's 6'5". He's got almost a skinhead at this point, and he walks around Leicester in a big, long black leather trench coat. Okay, which if you know my husband these days, it doesn't quite fit.
No, I was going to say that's not the Andy I'm thinking of.
That is not the Andy that everybody else knows now. So he made an impression. He really did. But the story gets better because we were in this life group together for a year, and apparently in the background, Andy started thinking that I was a bit of all right. And we went off home for the Christmas holidays, came out for the Christmas holidays, and he was planning to ask me out. Well, unfortunately, working at this bookshop, I'd found somebody else, and I'd come back from holidays with a boyfriend. It was a rocky teenage romance. And so by the time the summer holidays came around, it was on the off. Bless Andy, he was on the train somewhere, and he stopped up in Croydon to meet me for a coffee or something.
Mm-hmm.
Through the year, my husband's a lovely chap. He's just a sweetheart, and he has always had lots and lots of female friends. And so throughout the year, we've been saying, Sarah and Kathy and I, "Oh, Andy, you'd be the perfect boyfriend if only there was that spark there." My poor husband, who's sitting there going, "There is a spark. There is a spark." So it wasn't until as though the Christmas, at the end of the summer, he came through Waterstone's bookshop to make this chap jealous for me.
Wow.
Bless him. I think back now, and I think how cruel it was at the time. It didn't feel that way. So we come back a bit earlier to the uni than most other courses do. Andy was staying around in Leicester anyway. He spent Leicester in the summer in Leicester. So we were there, and he came over for fish and chip supper, and he brought me some flowers, which I thought was lovely. My mum's going, "It's an interesting chap, this Andy. Did he bring everybody flowers?" "Oh, yeah. It's just friendship, Mum. It's just friendship." And we had a lovely evening. We watched Terminator, one of his favourite movies. And he went home. And then we spent a little bit of time texting backwards and forwards. This was before smartphones. It was all multi-press Nokia. And essentially flirting. And he ended up coming around the following evening, because this is uni, so everything happens late at night, right? You're all getting up at 10 o'clock in the morning, so you're not going to bed till after midnight. So late at night, he comes to the house, and bless him, the man, he's got moves. So he comes to the house and he said, "Oh, I've come to apologise." So what did I have to apologise? "I'm to apologise for not kissing you last night."
Wow.
And that was that. Swept off my feet. We've been together ever since. So I was, oh gosh, that was 2002.
Wow.
2002. I know, he's a sweetie.
That is good going. Wow. Full respect. You see, I was the complete opposite with my wife. She'll tell you that, I was rubbish at that type of stuff, but there you go. I tried. I won as well, technically, because I got her, but there you go. So we'll
That's
move
what
on
Andy
to
said.
that. Yeah,
My
exactly. That's
cooking.
it. Oh, that's it. That's it. Finally, going off from that then. So, who is someone that you most admire? It could be Andy for that moment, or it could be someone else and that you admire. And why do you admire them?
This is a really tricky one to think about as well. And there's an easy answer as a children's ministry leader. And the answer is always Jesus or a squirrel, but mostly Jesus. There's a woman that I've worked with over a number of years. She's the pediatric emergency department consultant at the Leicester Royal Infirmary. And her name is Sam Jones. And if anyone is ever unfortunate enough to encounter her at work, you will be very blessed because she's a fantastic clinician. She is passionate about young people and mental health particularly. And she changed the way I looked at young people in mental health crisis with what I suspect to her was a throwaway sentence. It was a tiny remark made. It's a number of years ago now, letting off steam a little bit about a young person who'd come in having self-harmed. And in a sort of, why did you come to the hospital kind of thing? And Sam said, think how difficult must their life be if they'd rather be here hurting themselves than at home. And she said it in a really kind, understated way. It wasn't aggressive. She didn't pull me aside or anything. But it started a transformation in how I look at young people in crisis. And honestly, I think at that point, I was partway through my own journey with mental illness, and it sparked a turnaround in what do I want to do with my career for the rest of my life. The nice thing about pediatrics is you can do anything, because pediatrics is like general medicine for smaller people. So we have prescriptive doctors. You can do a bit of anything, but it blew on the embers. Actually, I was going to say lit a fire. It didn't lit a fire. There was smouldering embers there, and she found the flame.
Yeah.
But she did. She blew onto those embers and guided me in an area I hadn't thought about. And as you say, when I grow up, I want to be like her. That really gentle way of correcting it, just being different to the surrounding culture without being abrasive or being harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to be her when I grow up.
Wow. Really powerful. Really powerful. So just the final kind of part for me in this section. So just kind of again off that, like what is your favorite Christian song or just a song in general? And also kind of give us a reason why that.
So the one I've chosen, the one I've prepared, is In Christ Alone, which is not as old as it sounds, like it should be, but it's really timeless. And it was a really we had it at our wedding. We sang it at our wedding. It was an important song to us, and it was something that God used for us to confirm that Living Rock was the place for us to make our home. And we'd moved from the city out towards the villages for work to buy a house, and we were touring the local churches, online somewhere. But how do you know what the right place to be is? And the first Sunday that we came to Living Rock, we sang In Christ Alone, and we sang it beautifully. It was meaningful. That last verse, no guilt in life, no fear of death. And then no power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from his hand. Speaks to me so strongly of the security and the confidence I can have. And that sets a foundation. It speaks to the foundation of my life that I think has been the thing that made the difference for me compared to a lot of people that I encounter who have similar difficulties along their journeys. Honest to goodness. And it's easy to say, they need Jesus, but they do, because if you can see how God sees you, if you can see what God wants for you and made you to be, it gives you that confidence. There is nothing that can happen that's going to take me out of that place. So yeah, it's the song that I've chosen.
Yeah, brilliant.
I love the first verse of this one, Louise. I love the song. Don't sing it enough.
Oh,
In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, his solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm. Don't we all have a lot of those?
Mhm.
What heights of love, what depths of peace. When fears are stilled, when strivings cease. He is our comforter, our all in all. Those speak loudly in life journeys for many of us, and I know it does to you as well. And what a brilliant song, Louise. Thanks for sharing that and some insights into it. It's a lovely song. Just following that, you've talked about going into your job, having kids, growing, and all of that. How does sort of like God speak to you? How does He direct you? Is there any? Is there? I know that's unique for all of us, but it'd be great to hear how He's done that. If you've got any tangible examples of how He does that for you.
yeah, I've had two examples. This is where the squirrel brain comes in. So one of my kids has recently been diagnosed with ADHD, and a part of working through that, you come to the realization. This is a shared realization that a lot of parents of ADHD kids have, which is they've got it too. So I don't have a formal diagnosis, but I have seen a psychologist and sort of had a kind of conversation nod. And I think it's so wonderful that God meets us the way we need him to, because my squirrel brain that needs 14 different things at once, God goes, okay, Louise, so there isn't one way we're going to do this. But also, so I've heard God's voice twice in my life, really, really clearly. And the way I knew it was him was because it was in my head. It wasn't a noise that I heard, it was in my head. But it wasn't just words, it imparted a full understanding. And I can remember as a teenager going through a difficult circumstance, and at the same time I was back home for a holiday or a break or something. And there were some troubles going on at home as well, some difficulties in my parents' lives. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not sure how I can cope with this. I'm not sure I can do this. One of the things I brought from university was a plant. I'm not very good at keeping plants alive. I didn't manage for very long with this poor Gerber daisy, but it was and those Gerbers, then it sort of had shoots with the sort of droopy-headed flower. And in the pot, it was on the side in the kitchen. I must have literally just dumped it there as I got home. And there was one flower on its own, and then there were two flowers next to each other. And it caught my eye, and I heard God say, "You are not your parents." And what I understood in that moment was we are each our own individual selves. We are all precious and individual to God. But as a child, you grow up in a family. You're put in a family for a reason. And it's not quite an extension of your parents, but you're covered by your parents. And what affects them directly affects you. And I believe that as you grow into adulthood, you kind of step out from that and become your own plant, become your own flower. And looking at it, I understood that those two together were my parents and the one on its own was me. And what God was saying was, yes, your mum and dad, there are some difficulties at the moment. They're having some troubles. And yes, you're having some troubles, but their troubles don't directly affect you now. I've got you. You're your own person now. And we're going to do this. This is going to be okay. And that was a real clear voice. But as I say, that's 2 times in 40 years. More often, I've had the voice of God through people speaking to me, particularly in difficult times.
Was that words of encouragement
early,
or Bible passages or words of prophecy or knowledge?
wow. So it varies. Sometimes somebody will say something remarkably relevant without having any clue. A woman called Rose, her name was Rose, who I have never met again. And I'm really reasonably sure that she's real, but I have never met her again. Actually, Living Rock gave us a word about the thing that you're praying for will come to pass, essentially. And she came up and she introduced herself and she gave me this word and she went away. And as I say, I've never seen her since, but I talked to somebody at the time and they said, oh, yes, such as that is why. But it was a word about, we were praying about having children. We were thinking about having kids and starting a family. And this was in the run up to me falling pregnant and then having Isaac, which obviously, being in the medical field, you're more aware of the troubles that can come and the difficulties people can have. I had a really rocky time about 6 years ago with my mental health. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety and burnout, which is what triggered it all. My occupational health doctor described it as an engine running at full speed for too long. If you run an engine hard, eventually something will break. And bless her, she said, I'm surprised this hasn't happened sooner, which sounds awful, but took as a compliment at the time because she'd listed all the things I was doing with my life. It was good that I made it this far, which was nice. And during that time, I couldn't pray. I didn't know how. There was a barrier. I didn't think God was there. It was that I just didn't have, and I couldn't sing, which I love to sing. And church was hard, and being around kids was hard. And I wasn't myself, and it was horrible. And I lost who I was. I was off work for 7 months. Being a doctor, the time it takes up and the amount of your identity that it becomes, not being at work, was a huge thing for me. And in that time, I had a couple of people who I sort of really knew at church who became much better friends and who lifted me up in prayer and walked with me and encouraged me and slowed me down when I needed slowing down. And not just Christians. God gave me absolutely terrifying but truly wonderful GP. I made an appointment with somebody else and I ended up with this GP who terrified me, but actually was the most sympathetic, the most down to earth. I said to her at one point, how do you know this is real? Because it's all in my head and it's only based on what I'm telling you. And she said, Louise, I've been a GP for a long time. Do you think I can't tell when people are lying to me? But she slowed me down. She held the reins. She allowed me to make mistakes. I thought I was ready to go back to work. She disagreed, but she let me try anyway. And she was right and I was wrong. So I think God speaks to us through other people. I get a lot from books and things as well. But one of the biggest things is opportunities, either arising or denied. We wanted to move south after I finished my degree and I didn't get a job down south. We ended up staying here. Various things have slipped into place. I've been looking for a job since the beginning of the year. I finished my training in August, and usually in the first 6 months running up to that, you secure a job and move straight in. And the employment prospects are pretty grim at the moment. And I applied at the place I thought I was going to get a job and didn't get a job. I applied at what seemed to be a really good place and didn't get the job. And I've ended up, this new job I'm starting is at a hospital I would never have thought of. I applied because the job market is rough at the moment and it didn't seem like a bad job. And the more I find out about that situation, the more I come to appreciate that actually it's probably exactly where I should be. And the devastation I felt at not getting the job I thought I should, when that cleared, to then look back at it and go, actually, you were downplaying the downsides, the things that wouldn't have prospered you. And I'm actually really excited to see what's going to happen. This is an 18-month contract. I'm really excited to see where we go from here and what happens, because I think there's a lot of potential.
Wow.
If nothing else, it's a good trial ground for starting as a new consultant and getting feet under me.
And I think that's the amazing thing about God, isn't it? He sees the beginning from the end. He sees what you're going to be like in the future, and he sees that in you even when you're not like that at the start of your journey, and he's brought you through. He's obviously gifted you with having a real interest in children's care.
Mm.
Is that what you would say is the main gift that he's gifted you with, him using you in that? Or is there other aspects that you would say, actually, well, that's great, but actually he's also gifted me with something different?
I can talk the hind leg off a donkey, and I'm interested to see how long this recording lasts, because I can talk the hind leg off a donkey. That's a real, that ability to connect with people and I can talk to pretty much anybody, which is partly through my job and my exposure to various different people. But honestly, I think it's an innate skill that God has gifted me with, to talk to anyone, to build rapport with almost anyone. I'm known in my workplace for someone who will have a difficult conversation, who can talk to the difficult person. It's as I try and teach others, which is a big part of the job, you're always training the next person down the experience ladder, I start to realize how important that gifting is, because there are bits that you can learn, you absolutely can learn, but there's stuff that's come to me naturally. And along with that, an understanding of people and reading, not just the words, but the tone, I can't even break it down fully. The body language, the message that's underneath. So a person is angry, but they're not angry as a secondary emotion. There's something else going on, and being able to see that underlying and address that, that's a real, when I do that, I feel it flows. It feels natural. It
Yeah.
feels good to do that work.
No, I really get that. I see that in other people. It is a natural gift, as another skill might be for somebody else that's been given. You have it in bucket loads. You only have to see it in your face, even in your body language at church. You see it in how people interact with you. And obviously you had us laughing and crying with you when you came to our life group recently. You are very gifted in those spaces, and you give brilliant insights. But one of the things that we mustn't forget is it's those life experiences that you've had, which are not always mountaintops, they're valleys. They're not all open doors, they're closed doors, as you've described a few of those. And it's those that give you, and because of your reflective nature, gives you that insight, that God-given insight into other people and how to empathize. So yeah, brilliant. Do you see God using those giftings in the future in any particular way, or just more of the same of what you've been doing so far?
One of the things I love about my job is how much education and teaching is involved, and how much pediatrics is unique in that we call it the triadic relationship, which is we have a child, the patient, we have a doctor, and we have a parent or a carer. And we work together to the best interest of the child. And some of the stuff I do is advocating for the child to their parent, particularly teenagers, and empowering and if you can help someone understand something, you can see where they are, help them understand what's going on, and then you can move them forward. And then they're not reliant on you. They can take ownership of their own life and their own health. And I can do that. I do that with my littlies in Hot Rock. So my Hot Rock Under Threes is our Under Threes ministry. And I joke that we get them to the point where they can sit still, say please and thank you, and answer a question. And then we send them upstairs to Hot Rock 3, where they reap all the benefits of our hard work. But it's joyous. It's joyous to be around these little people and to be around their parents who are doing the best job they can. I firmly believe that God sends the child to the parent that they need. And these parents are gifted to be what their child needs. It's not always easy. Parenting my children is not always straightforward. But I know that God has given us the things we need and will continue to do so. And I know that we're the right people to do that. And if I can help impart that to other people, that's a good day for me.
That is brilliant. While we're talking about how God speaks, is there a favourite passage that maybe the Lord's given you that you hold dear, may come back to, that you could share with us?
Yeah. And I think I think when we talked about in my group, I shared two. I've picked the one that resonates the most through my life, which is Psalm 27. And not the middle part of it, it's the beginning and the end. And there are echoes of In Christ Alone at the same time in some of the phrases. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? One thing I ask of the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and see him in his temple. And this is the one that I've had on my phone screen. This verse is, I've had this on my phone screen all year. I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong, take heart, and wait for the Lord. And that waiting is active. Be strong, take heart, not be given heart. Take heart. And that has been on my lock screen as I've waited for God to bring me the job that I needed. And I'm the main wage earner in the family. I've been unemployed for a couple of months. That is nerve-wracking. At the end of 20 years of training, that's really nerve-wracking. But actually, this has been the calmest big problem we face. Andy's amazing. Andy has a great, uh, a steadiness to him and a solidness to him. And he balances me nicely because I'm the worrier. He chills me out and I make sure we get stuff done. But this year, for all that, our lives could come crumbling down. And I've had confidence we wouldn't lose the house. The children would always be fed. But instead of worrying, I've been wondering, I'd quite like to know what the next step was. Thank you very much. But I've done that in a calm sense. And it's been a very strange experience for somebody who's had anxiety. I probably had anxiety all of my life. It certainly got worse after I had the children. To be in that position has been quite remarkable. It's been amazing.
Yeah, and we've watched you on some of that journey, certainly recently as well, Louise. When you came to Life Group earlier in the year, doing a practice of this, you were in the middle of just not being able to get those jobs, and you were calm, and you were confident in the Lord in those times, despite the circumstances. And I know we all sat there thinking, how, when you're the main salary earner, it's been amazing just to see you come through that and be given the job that just seems absolutely ideal for you. God always knows best, doesn't he? And there's still more to be revealed. There's still more to be revealed in terms of this next step for you. So brilliant. Thank you for sharing those things. A beautiful passage as well. Really beautiful passage.
Yeah. It must be really hard to know what to put your faith into or what to put your trust into in those times, especially if you don't know Jesus. You obviously knew Jesus throughout that time, and clearly by what you've said and what you've spoken of, you knew exactly who to put your trust in. Even if you needed a bit of help from Andy to do that, you know exactly what to put your trust in, and that was Jesus. So how did you come to faith? What was your story of coming to know Jesus?
So I was a cradle Christian, which I think is a lovely phrase. The alternative is church brat, but cradle Christian. So I grew up in a Baptist church. My parents were cradle Christians. Mm-hmm. They both came from Methodist churches.
When you say cradle Christian, can you explain that a little bit for people that may not have had that?
Yes, before? Sorry. Yeah. So somebody born into a Christian household.
Yeah.
And somebody who has, so somebody says to me, when did you first hear the good news? I've got no idea. Yeah. Because I was probably two.
Yeah.
And cradle Christians quite often, so Christian from the cradle.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a tricky one to navigate. And I imagine you probably had a similar experience.
Yeah, exactly.
You were brought up in a house that was full of faith. So if somebody says to you, when did you first believe in God? I haven't got a magical testimony. I haven't got that moment where I went from living the sinful life to living the God-filled, spirit-empowered life. I have always known that God was real. We went to church regularly. My mum was a Sunday school teacher. My dad was a deacon. I was raised in theologically sound environments. We changed churches when I was about 13, moved from one Baptist church to another. I was discipled by some really wise people. It's an odd time to move, being 13. I didn't slot in well with the youth group. My brother and sister who are younger than me did. They fitted in better. But I'd had my friends back at our old church. There were good reasons why we'd left. And I didn't slot in well. What I did do was I was started into children's ministry at that point. And I was probably 14, 15. And I was discipled that way. We used to do Spring Harvest. And I can remember, I think I first made the decision for Christ at Spring Harvest, which is a Easter festival at Butlins. We used to go to Minehead. And it's like Butlins for Christians, essentially, with worship in the big top and all sorts. So that's probably where I made a decision for Christ. When I was then 16, so I was 17, 18, and you start to bump up against the world and the sort of what difference is Jesus going to make to your choices when nobody's going to get hurt? So like, be a good person, be kind to other people. That's straightforward. you shouldn't live with your boyfriend if you're not married to him. This is your boyfriend. You shouldn't live together before you're married. That's God's right rule, because that is what's best for us. But there are plenty of people out there who've lived together before marriage and they've not hurt anybody. So when you start to bump up against those things, well, what decisions am I going to make? So in my late teens, I probably took more ownership of that myself and allowed my faith to be a guiding principle of my life rather than just sort of there in the background.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's and I think actually what you said at the beginning, you don't have I've forgotten exactly the words you used, but you said about not having this kind of big flashy testimony. What God has given you is something for someone. So don't ever speak yourself down at that moment, because that may be exactly what someone needs at the time. I would still sometimes do, because obviously I had a very similar kind of introduction to Jesus. I was from a child up until now, and I would say I've never had one of those wavering moments. For some people, that's and that has been a really powerful thing for people to see. So don't ever kind of belittle that, because what you have is very powerful. So in that, then I guess
I've had to think about it.
Go on.
I've had to think about it for the kids as well, because I'm raising 4 children in a faith-filled environment, and thinking about that for them. And I've come to the sort of realization that bedrock of faith, that support, actually is invaluable for some.
Yeah, for sure.
As given the alternative.
Yeah, and you've got that for them, so you're a testimony to your children, which is a massive deal. So in that then, so from kind of what you've explained and stuff, obviously Jesus and our life with Jesus isn't always plain sailing. He doesn't say that because we've given our life to Jesus, that means everything will be easy. Has there been a moment that you would be willing to share that maybe Jesus has almost dragged you through those valley moments? And what did you kind of learn from that? I think we've all been dragged through but I've definitely been dragged through the valleys at some stage. So do you have a kind of a story or something like that would you be willing to share, kind of and what kind of the Spirit or Jesus taught you in that as well, and how that's kind of shaped you now?
Yeah. This is an interesting thing to talk about on a podcast. That I know is going to go out into the world out of my control. So forgive me for being a bit vague.
That's
in
absolutely
places.
Fine. Don't worry.
So I went through some really disturbing experiences and upsetting experiences as a young child that resulted in me ending up as a witness in court in my late teen years. And it completely upended my life at that point. When you looked at our family from the outside, we were a very good example of the middle class Christian lifestyle. Mum and dad serving in the church, 3 lovely children, all growing up academically fine, socially fine. I didn't realise this until much later, but I learned that the world wasn't a safe place to be, and that's really scary when you're a child. And I've met children for whom that's true. Is in the course of my work, and doing that has given me a new appreciation for myself at that age, because there was a lot of blame and a lot of shame that I carried for a very long time. And this court case brought it all up again. And I think of myself a bit like an onion, and you peel a layer off and then it makes you cry. And you peel another layer off and then it makes you cry. And there was a lot of crying, and there was a lot of tears. And there was a lot of asking, why me? And where were you, God? You've only got to go to you haven't got to read very many Psalms to realise that it's absolutely okay to say, what the heck are you doing, God? Where are you? Why have you left me on my own? Because David's so good at saying those things. And I can remember what proceedings are really tricky, and there's adjournments and all sorts of postponements or whatever. And I'd come back to the university to go to court, and they called off the hearing at last minute. So I disrupted the whole of my life to come down. And I remember lying on the sofa in my parents' living room, just shell-shocked, and everything gone out of me. And lying there thinking, why? What did you do? Where were you? Why did this happen? And then a sense, and you have to take this in this is going to sound really harsh, but that's not how it came across. It's a thought came to me and that it could have been worse, which sounds awful, but actually was a big comfort to me. And I think that's a thing that I've taken through. I said 6 years ago, I had some mental health difficulties that ended up with me off work. And when you're having these sorts of assessments, they always say to you, and have you had any thoughts about hurting yourself? And have you had any thoughts about suicide and things? And these things have never occurred to me. And there's this running joke with me and Andy that if somebody ever comes to him and says, Louise killed herself, he should call the police because it's a murder and I would never do it. Just, yeah. And I watch too much TV. The thing looking back now about that time period and looking and seeing what other people, and my context is mostly young people. When I talk about having depression, having anxiety, I have yet to find somebody who I've said, no, there was one person in all of the time, 6 years longer, who was not sympathetic. Everybody else knew somebody. Oh, my husband. Oh, my friend. And you find out these things that when you're vulnerable and you say to someone, this is the truth. And I'm really big on using the words. I think physical health, we don't talk about physical illness or physical health, but mental illness should be as easy to talk about as physical illnesses and physical health problems. And one day we'll get there. Doctors are really, really bad at it. It's like we think we're superhuman and we can cope with all the stuff we see. And people say this to me about being a children's doctor. How do you cope with all the sick children? And I've worked in some really difficult positions. And I have been involved with cases where there haven't been good outcomes. And that takes a toll on anyone. I truly believe that children go to heaven to be with Jesus. I mean, that to me. And the God I know and love loves his kids. And having my faith, so that's an easy flip answer, but actually knowing who I am and why I'm created and being able to take those stresses, those strains and go back to Jesus loves me because I am who I am. I'm not always going to get it right. I'm not always going to be everybody's favorite person. I can rub someone up the wrong way. Maybe I'd got that wrong. Maybe I said that wrong. But Jesus loves me. And if I didn't have that bedrock and that foundation, if I didn't have the solid background of knowing who I am and that I'm loved and that I'm cared for, I don't think I'd be in the position I am today. And so I meet these young people, and if I can give them a flavor, just a taste of a whiff or a hint of you are you and that is good. God made you good. Maybe the world's done some stuff along the way and the way that you're expressing yourself right now is not good, but you inside, you are good. That's that would be, for
sure.
That's what they need. That's
Yeah.
what we all need, to know that we are who we are on purpose. There was a reason. There's that phrase, there's a U-shaped hole in the universe. There's a job that only you can fill. And it's just right.
That's really good. So obviously you've had lots of different experiences that Jesus has taken you through and things like that. Do you see then? Because we obviously are talking about like fanning the flame for him and with your gifts and stuff and how do the whole point of the podcast is to look at different people and how they do that, how they've been doing that. With those things then that you've gone through and you've gone through with Jesus, how has that helped you, would you say, fan your flame in your life currently and in the things that you're doing now?
I asked you on a bit of that question.
Did you? Okay. I'll ask you again. I'll do it again. Sorry, that's fine. So you've obviously been through a lot and had lots of different experiences and things like that. And you've walked all that with Jesus. But how has that then prepared you for the things that you're doing now? And are there any kind of things that like more broad things that people would be able to take away that are listening? And how is that then applied into the things that you're doing now, if that makes sense?
Mm.
That's a big unprepared question, by the way. So
That's a
I'm so
big
sorry.
question. But no, but
Yeah.
it is. No, it's a good question. It's a big question, but it's a good one.
Mhm.
I think a lot. I think a lot and I reflect a lot and I read a lot. I feel like if I'd have been around it, like Da Vinci was a bit of an everything man. They call him a
Mhm.
Renaissance man for a reason. And
Yeah.
I do think, I mean, I'd have had to have been a man back then, but if I had have been that, they did everything. They were doctors, they were sculptors, they were architects, they made war machines, they consulted with kings. So I'm interested in all sorts of different things. I'm mostly interested in people. God made us intensely unique. It's the, the sheer diversity that there is out there. If you think no one person is the same as any other one person, and you think about all the people who've ever lived, that's a lot of people and all the people to come.
Yeah.
And too often you can be told there's one way to do something, just the right way to do something. In a Christian setting, this lovely verse, I think it's in Peter, and the Peter's letters, where women should have a quiet and humble spirit. I'm not a quiet person. I've never been a quiet person. I was the bossy kid in the children's groups, and it took me quite a while to work out that doesn't mean about volume. It's not to do with volume. It's to do with peacefulness. It's to do with confidence. To do with calm. And going through this ADHD stuff with Sam, and then also for myself, I'm getting older. I think the process of getting older helps. Coming to realize who I am, and I have a real problem with. So we see a lot of kids with autistic spectrum disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and these both end in disorder. And it really winds me up because there's nothing wrong with my son. There's nothing wrong with me. We are who God made us to be. And we can talk about social construction of disability if you like. God didn't make disordered people in that sense. God made a huge diversity of brain. And yeah, sometimes we need to put labels on things to make it easier for us to operate in the world that we've created. But that variety and diversity is hugely important, hugely valuable. Because each individual person brings something. And I think that's what I've learned in the last 20, 30 years. And that's what I would say to other people is make friends with yourself. Appreciate that God made you who you are and don't try to be somebody else. I mean, don't be somebody else. They're all taken. Be yourself. Everybody else is taken. Unless you could be a unicorn, in which case be a unicorn. And we can say, oh, God made this wonderful world. Look at these flowers. They're so beautiful. God made this beautiful. God made you and you are beautiful.
Yeah.
So I think that's that. You start with that.
Yeah.
And see yourself as something wonderful God made. And you can then
really good.
Go on to everything else.
Amazing.
Vague answer to a big question.
No, that's really good. That's exactly the type of thing I think I was like asking for. That's really good. So thinking from that then, obviously you've obviously grown up in a Christian home, read the Bible probably from all sorts of different angles in different circumstances. But outside of that, are there any books that you've ever read from people outside of the Bible that have really helped you and given you kind of insight into things that maybe you wouldn't have before?
How long you got? So we have books in every single room of our house. The children know if we're out shopping, like it'll be, no, you can't have that t-shirt. No, you can't have those trainers. Can I have this book? Yes, absolutely, you can have that book. It's the one thing they know I won't say no to. So I've recently read a book called Familiar Stranger, which is a book about the Holy Spirit. And we were doing a Holy Spirit series in church. And it put up on Lectio 365, which is okay, I'm going to throw a lot of names now. So the 24/7 prayer movement, Pete Gregg, they have Lectio 365, which is it's an app that does they do three meditations, I suppose, in the day where you pause, you reflect on a scripture, you pray. And they had a bit of that spirit. And this is where I found this book. Tyler, somebody is the guy who wrote it. And it was such a good book for thinking about something that I've heard about all my life. And it's not possible to understand the idea of the Trinity. It's beyond our understanding. But to get a little bit more insight. So that's my latest one. That's that.
Nice.
I can
That's
give
really
you a longer
good.
list outside if you want.
Oh, that's really good. That's really good. Brilliant.
Some brilliant insights into how God speaks to you and brought you through and carried you. And he speaks through different books, not just the Bible. And that's great to hear what you've been doing there. Obviously, as we draw to a close, Louise, last few thoughts is, if you had 3 minutes with either Jesus or a non-Christian, choose whichever one you want, what would you talk to them about?
I wasn't offered the option of Jesus last time. This is interesting now because I might change my mind. So I don't really repeat myself. I think people are fascinating, and I would love to find out more about a non-Christian. I'd love to tell them part of my story and why. One thing that people have said is that when I share my story, people say, "Oh, you wouldn't know that from the outside." And I think there's a lot of people who see the swan swimming on the top and think everything's grand, and don't realize what's going on in the background. I think the biggest lie that anyone believes is it's just you. You are alone. Nobody else is feeling like this. It's just you. And that's such a deadly, insidious lie, because it's not true, obviously, but it has so many knock-on effects. I've met some fantastic people. I spend a lot of time meeting somebody, spending 10 minutes with them, finding out all sorts of intimate details of their lives, and then moving on. So yeah, give me 3 minutes with a non-Christian and we'll chat about life and why Jesus.
Yeah,
Because,
brilliant. And I think that's the thing, and
yeah,
you've said quite a few times tonight about we're unique and we're loved. And I know that in that chatting to them and being real, it's also about reminding them that they are loved by Jesus and that he made them unique. If you were to, as obviously you're still relatively young compared to some on this call, but looking forward, what would you like your legacy in life to be, Louise?
I want to leave behind 4 people who love God, who love themselves, who are doing their thing and doing it proudly because they know it's right, whatever that is. If I can do that, my children is what I mean. 4 people, my children, not random 4 people.
Just 4 people.
Yeah, random people that we meet in the world. No, my 4 people. If I can leave them doing that. If I can do that as well for some of the people I bump up against at work or in the church, that would be even better. If I could, I love the under 3s, I really do. Being part of that ministry of, we set them up, we set the foundation. I have 2 things for them to learn. One is God loves you, and the other is you are safe here. And those are the 2 truths I want them to know, because that's essential. But the rest of everything else they're going to learn in church, if they pick up, Jesus was born at Christmas and died at Easter. Some of them think Jesus was 3 months old when he died, just FYI. They haven't worked out that there were 33 years in between that. They think Christmas, Easter. But if if they take that, fantastic. But if they know they're loved and they're safe here, yeah,
Brilliant.
build that foundation.
Yeah.
There's my mum used to say, I can't remember who she said now. It wasn't Charles Wesley, but it was somebody like that. Even Charles Wesley had a mother. And there's something about being in the background. I don't get the credit, but to be part of building that foundation, I love that.
Yeah, incredibly powerful. So we're going to draw this to a close now, Louise, and you've been amazing. You've been really honest, vulnerable. You've given us some great insights and encouragement. But is there any last words of encouragement that you might give to others about converting their gifts, recognizing their gifts, using their gifts? And if you've got that word of encouragement, what would it be?
Don't get hung up on the big 5. And I'm going to now fail to remember what the big 5 are. But you might not be gifted as an evangelist or a preacher. We're all teachers in our own way. We're all evangelists in our own way. They're all little bits. Don't get caught up on just because they made a list doesn't mean there isn't more. And there are small things. Being the person who can have that insight and that encouraging word is going to make a difference. Being the person who notices that we've just run out of chairs and I can't remember who it was the other day, and bringing some extra chairs to put them at the end of the row because they've just realised that quiet background stuff. Somebody who can make someone smile, somebody who can make a beautiful flower arrangement, whatever it is. Just because they made a list of 5 things doesn't mean that that's all there is. You can, anything you do, anything you love to do that brings you joy is a gift from God, and it can be used. And maybe there's some obvious ways. I'm a knitter. I'm a knitter and a crocheter, and I'm always knitting in church because it helps me. It's an ADHD thing. It keeps my hands busy so that my brain can focus on what's going on. And so there's an obvious way. Okay, we'll knit blankets for the homeless or for babies in special care units or whatever. But the number of conversations I've had with people started with, what are you knitting? It's amazing. And then you just have to be a person. So God will use things in interesting ways if you're just open. And don't wait for it doesn't have to be big and flashy. I'm going to get a quote really wrong now, but you won't know how many seeds you planted until you get to heaven and look back to see the harvest. Because the person who leads them to Christ is reaping the rewards of the work that's gone beforehand, the drip, 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 done beforehand. And all of those drip, drip, drips, just as important as the person who leads the prayer.
It's really good.
Amen.
So yeah,
Very good.
don't do yourself down.
Brilliant. Thank you, Louise.
No, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Louise, for coming on the podcast. It's been, I'm definitely inspired. I know Stuart is as well. I can speak on behalf of him soon. We hope everyone that's listening is also really inspired to really fan the flame that God has, the gift that God has given you. It says in 2 Timothy about where Paul says it, and it talks of kind of him fanning the flame as the gift that God has given us, and we worship and serve a spirit that is of power and that is of love. So we just hope that everyone that's listening is really encouraged to fan their flame, encourage others to fan their flame as well, and get around people to help that. And because this is so much more than just some good stories, this is all about God's eternal purpose. And each one of us has been given a special gift within us that we really need to fan into flame for eternal purposes to be seen. So we just really hope that this has been a really inspiring podcast for the listeners, and we hope to have you on the next one too. So we will see you then. Goodbye.
Thank you, Louise. Goodbye. Be blessed, everybody.